Start recording the session. Right. Okay. So I'm sorry for the mistake. I was not con I didn't have connected my headphones, so I was speaking without a microphone. Okay, guys. So right now, today, we're gonna be working here for our second class of the week. Number one, it's the second part of the class of yesterday, right? So yesterday we were talking about the gerunds. Well, we were talking about the who and the when and the personality adjectives that we have here for talking about jobs, no? So why well, first, who is a moody person, who is a supportive person, and why the best reason is, or the best option is to be a firefighter or to be a soldier or to be a chef, depending your personality, right? So, and in that case, we use like who and when for describing what kind of people we are and what kind of personality we have, right? So, if I am a person who is moody, it's because I don't like it when the people, I don't know, like I suffer a lot when the people tell me bad things, or I change my moods when the people tell me things, no? For example, or if I am a person who is modest, it's because I don't like to speak too much when I do something good, no? So in that case, we have like when and who for explaining different things. But at the final part of the class, we talk about the gerunds. And we described that we can use the gerund as a noun, might be as the subject of the sentence, or sometimes as the complement of the sentence, which is the object of the sentence, right? So in that case, I have the two possibilities, yes? Especially when I use the subject, the gerund as a subject is because I am going to describe for me what is my opinion about that action. Normally, that's the use of the gerund as a subject because I am going to describe what is that action for me or how is that action for me. In this case, I am giving my opinion about working as a teacher and I'm saying that is very difficult, right? But I also can describe what is my feeling, yeah, what's my feeling about that action. If I like it, if I don't like it, if I don't mind it, right? So, sorry. In this case, guys, we're going to find out that if I use the gerund at the beginning, is because I'm going to describe my opinion about that action. Yes. And if I use the gerund as a subject, is because I am going to describe what is my position, if I like it or if I don't like it, if I enjoy it or if I hate it, right? If I don't mind it or if I can't stand it. You know what is the expression can't stand? When I say I can't stand, what is the meaning of that? You remember?
¿No poder estar? No, no estoy
Well,
seguro.
no poder, otra cosa, no estar, sino otra cosa. I can't stand working on Saturdays, for example. I can't stand it.
No poder soportarlo.
No poder soportarlo. Muy bien, very good. Entonces, don't mind, it's like, no, I don't have problem. Or can't stand it, that it's like, I have a lot of trouble. I don't like it. I can't stand it. Ready? So in that case, when I use the gerund as an object, is because I am going to describe what's my position, if I like it or if I don't like it, no? With different verbs. Verbs like, for example, mine, or this expression stand, or other verbs like, for example, like, or like, for example, dislike, which is the opposite, right? Or like, for example, enjoy, or like, for example, hate, or like, for example, love, you know? So in that case, all of those verbs which describe, position, yeah, in that case are going to help me to introduce then my position about one action. Okay, ready? So in this case, guys, in the previous image, in the infographic of this week, I asked you first, what's the best option for every single adjective. But also we had a second question, which is which would be the best option for you? Which is the best option for Brian, which is the best option for Daniela, and which is the best option for Christian from these options of jobs, no? For example, for me, Leo, I think that I would be a good, I don't know. I think that I would be a good judge, you know? I think I would be a good judge because I am someone who is very objective. No, I try not to be partialized, so I'm someone who is very objective. Yes. And also because I can stand being unfair. Do you know what is the meaning of unfair? Unfair?
Injusticia.
Injusto. Yes, injusto. Muy bien. So in that case, I said, I can't stand being unfair. Ya no lo puedo soportar. I can't stand being unfair. So, taking into account that I am someone who is very objective and taking into account that I can be stand being unfair, I think that for me, for teacher Leonardo, the best option is to be a judge. But what about you? What is the best option from these possibilities, from these alternatives? What is the best option for you and why, of course? Think about it. What do you think? What's the best possibility?
Teacher, I think that the doctor,
Why, my friend? Why? So Brian would like to be a doctor, but why?
because they people can save life.
Okay, very good. So I think that Brian would say like, you know what, teacher? I would love, a mí me encantaría, ¿no? I would love saving lives. ¿Cierto? I would love saving lives. Entonces, claro, como tengo el verbo love, la siguiente acción, que es la que me encantaría, it's going to be with gerund, va a ser en gerundio, ¿sí o no? I would love saving lives. Muy bien, Brian, very good, yeah. O Brian maybe said, teacher, is que I am someone who is very compassionate. What is the meaning of compassionate?
Compasivo.
Compasivo, very good, excellent. O empathic, ¿no? Empathic. Right? So in that case, Brian said, teacher, I am someone who is empathic, so I would love saving lives. No? So these are the tools that we have, as I said before yesterday, for example, in a job interview, no? When they ask you, bueno, what are your skills? Okay, my skills is that I am someone who la la la, I love doing this, I love doing that, right? Okay, guys, what about Chris or Danny?
Estoy pensando cómo formular bien.
Don't worry, relax. There are many possibilities, no? So you can choose one of the possibilities because there are many options to structure the sentence.
I think I can be astronaut
Good,
because I am someone who is love to travel.
good, very good, excellent, Danny. So I am someone who, in that case, is not necessarily the is, no? Just soy alguien quien es, no, just quien ama, right? So I'm someone who loves, and after the verb love, the next verb, it's going to be in ing. So I am someone who loves traveling. Aquí usamos
Traveling.
ambas. Exactly. Usamos el gerundio y también el relative clause de una vez. Muy bien. Excellent example, Danny. Very good. Hmm? What do you think, Chris?
I think that I could be an astronaut too,
Okay, why?
because I'm a person who enjoy investigating about all these things.
Wait. I'm a person who enjoys, third person who enjoys investigate is more like criminal, but in this case, when it's scientific, it's research.
Okay, researching all those things.
Yeah, good, excellent. So who enjoys researching about space, about about physics, I suppose. So, muy bien, excellent. I'm a person who enjoys researching about blah, blah, blah. So in that case, guys, you are selecting one option, one possible job, because of course, you have certain skills, certain things that you like, certain things that you don't like, right? certain characteristics that you have. If you're empathetic, if you're compassionate, if you are knowledgeable, for example, that we talked about this adjective yesterday, no? Or if you are, for example, adventurous, like Daniel. And what is adventurous?
Aventurero.
Aventurero, muy bien, very good. Or in this case, aventurera. So, muy bien, very good. So, if you're adventurous, you love traveling, you love meeting new people, you love knowing new places, great, excellent. So, those are your skills. But, well, that's what you like or what you don't like. And in that case, you introduce your position about different sentences, right? The different actions. But what about if I ask you, okay, what do you think about your job? What do you think about working as an economist? What do you think about working as a business manager? Brian, I forgot what's your job, Mike. Can you remind me, please?
Auxiliar contable, profe.
Accounting assistant, ¿verdad? Very good, yes. Okay, so it's an accountant assistant, right? So in that case, what do you think about that? What do you think about working with numbers, for example? Because an accountant assistant has to work with numbers, with a lot of money, you know? So what do you think about your job? You can mention about any aspect of your job. In my case, for example, I want to talk about working online. Working online is great. No, working online is great and comfortable. Bueno, comfortable, right? Yes, comfortable. Okay, that's my opinion about working online. Claro, but I can talk about working with adults, for example. That is other aspect of my job. Working with adults is better than working with kids, in my perception, of course, right? Or, for example, teaching English is easier than teaching Spanish, no? A different aspect of my job. So think of an aspect of your job and tell me what do you think about it?
Working as economist
Mm-hmm.
is very comfortable
Easier.
since we can work in any company,
Ah,
maybe hospitals, maybe.
great, very good. So she said that working as as an economist is very comfortable, you know. So it's, and her opinion is very comfortable since you can work in all kind of companies, no? Schools, hospitals, every kind of company requires an economist. So that's why it's so comfortable. Very good, Danny. Thank you so much. What about you guys?
Teacher, una pregunta, ¿es solo como la descripción de cómo es trabajar así? O, por ejemplo, se puede decir, trabajar en esto me hizo, por ejemplo, una mejor persona.
Yeah, of course. Well, yes. Usually we use it for talking about the opinion, which is with the verb to be, but of course you can introduce other aspect like that. Perfect. How would you do that sentence? Trabajar en esto me hizo una mejor persona. Great.
Ok, entonces, working as a general manager made me a more extroverted person.
Great, excellent. So working as a business manager made me, right? So it's actually similar when we said yesterday the expression makes me. It's like transforms it. Yeah, good. Excellent use of this expression. So working as a business manager made me a in this case, more outgoing person, more sociable, more extroverted, a better person, and make me more responsible, so on, so on. Right? So, claro, of course, that's a different possibility. Normally, what we do is saying, how is that action for me? But of course, more advanced, we can use this action, other different verbs for talking about the action. No? In that case, what was the effect that this action had on you? So this action made me more responsible, more like made me or helped me to grow up or something like that, right? Muy bien, Christian. Excellent example, right? And Brian, what about you, mate? What do you think about working with numbers or working as accountant assistant or even the city, no? Working in Bogota, working in Cali, working in the company, ta ta ta. What do you think about it?
Working as a accountable is exciting, but in some case is difficult for the numbers.
Good. Excellent. Very good. So working as an accountant assistant is exciting, okay, but sometimes it's difficult for the numbers. No, good. Excellent. I consider that too. I think the numbers are kind of difficult sometimes, not so. But when all of you work with numbers, so I'm not going to say anything but good. Excellent, guys. So in this case, well, actually in the previous case, we use the adjourned as an object, sorry, as a complement for talking about what you like or you don't like. I like helping people. I like traveling. I enjoy what was the other one? I enjoy researching about physics and ta ta ta. In that case, the action was in the complement part. It was an object, ready? But here in this example, in this question, you use it as a subject because you are talking about the action. You are not talking about you, but you're talking about the action. What's your opinion? Yeah, okay, first, because you are expressing the sentence. But the subject of the sentence is the action. Working online, working as an economist, working as a business manager, working as an accountant assistant, right? So in that case, you use the gerund, but in the subject part. Ready? Bueno, this is more or less like how can I say, like a summary of what we saw yesterday. Ready? And today we're going to have a complementary part, yes? Because other thing that we can do or that sometimes we have to do is comparing two different jobs, right? So in that case, imagine we're going to erase this part and we're going to compare two jobs. Let's suppose that we're going to compare, let's see, this job. What is that job, guys?
Doctor,
Doctor.
Doctor, right? Yes, exactly. And this other job. What is that job?
maybe psychologist.
Psychologist, of course, no? It's a person that is taking notes, making notes about the patient's situations, no? So in that case, we're going to have two different jobs. Let me just make it a little bit smaller so I can fit this screen. And then we have, they are kind of similar, but not really, no? So they have a lot of differences, right? So in that case, we're going to compare these two jobs, okay? So for a comparison, the first thing that we need is having two different subjects. So we're going to have the subject number one, which is this one, right? And the subject number two, which is this one. But sometimes I am going to talk about the person. Sometimes I am going to talk about the action, right? Because I can compare a doctor with a psychologist. Yes. Psychologist. Yeah, I can compare the two people, but also I can compare the two actions. It means, for example, working as a doctor or working as a psychologist. Sometimes I am not talking about the people, I'm talking about the action that they do. So I can say, for example, being as a doctor or being a psychologist or working as a psychologist or working as a doctor. Ready? So first is the two subjects, subject number one and subject number two, right? After that, what we're going to have, it's including a verb. Always, it's necessary a verb. For a comparison, there is always the necessity of including a verb, right? So after that, then we're going to have the comparative expression, you know, the comparative expression. But the comparative expression is going to be divided into parts. The part number one, yes, and the part number two. But the part two, it's going to be here. Ready? Why? Because you know that when we talk about comparatives, we have to use two different parts. The first one, which is more or less or better, if it's about quality, or worse, ¿cierto? And the second part in these four cases is going to be than. More than, less than, better than, or worse than. Of course, these two are about quantity and these two are about quality. Más que, menos que, o mejor que y peor que. Depende, si estoy comparando en calidad o en cantidad. Ready? And the last one, it's going to be the expression as. As is an expression of equality. Yes? So, what is the second part when we use as? ¿Cuál será la segunda parte cuando usamos as?
As.
As, very good, Danny, excellent. So it's gonna be as, right? Those are the two different parts of the comparative expression. Hmm? And here in the middle, it's the most important part, ready? Because here in the middle, I am going to have the word that I am using to describe the comparison. Normally, this word, it's going to be an adjective. Yeah, normally this word, it's going to be an adjective. Or, well, an adjective can be a characteristic or sometimes a verb in past participle that it's going to be used as an adjective, no? Example, let me just make some examples over here. For example, I don't know, let's say easy, right? Or for example, interesting, yes? Or for example, difficult, yeah? Or other verbs in past participle, like for example, respected. It's a verb in past participle, but in this case, it's a characteristic. Or for example, required. Also is a verb in past participle, but in this case, it's a characteristic, ready? Oh, sorry, paid, no? It's a verb in past participle, but it's also a characteristic. So in this case, guys, this here, it's going to be the most important part of the comparison because that is the center of the comparison. That is the element that it's comparing between the two different jobs, okay? Now, when we have adjectives of verb in past participle, the verb that we normally are going to use is the verb to be, right? So it might be is, or are, or depending if I want to make it with modal verbs, no? For example, can be or must be, no, must be depending, just the verb to be in different forms. See, present, simple past, future. No, I want to make it in future, it's possible, will be, for example. Yeah, so it's just using the verb to be when we talk about adjectives or verbs in past participle, right? Now, my question between a doctor and a psychologist, yes? Bueno, actually, it's the action, no? Between being a doctor and being a psychologist. What is easier in your perception, of course? What is easier, being a doctor or being a psychologist? What is easier? Do you remember the comparative of this one? It's ER because it's monosyllable, it's bisyllable with I. So in that case, easier, no? So which action is easier, being a doctor or being a psychologist?
Being a psychologist is more easier than being a doctor.
Okay, very good, Danny. So in that case, when we use ER, not necessarily more, just being a psychologist is easier than being a doctor. Excellent, very good. You see, it's going to be subject number one, being a psychologist is easier than being a doctor, subject number two. So it follows this structure. Ready? Ahora, what do you think? Interesting. Between being a doctor and being a psychologist, which action is more interesting?
Teacher, being a doctor is more interesting than be a psychology.
Okay, very good. Excelente. Brian, este adjetivo, esta letra no se pronuncia, right? So it's going to be interesting. Esa E no va a sonar. Interesting.
Okay.
Good. Very good. Excellent. So in that case, you said, no, pues the action of being a doctor is more interesting than being a psychologist. De pronto otra persona dice, no, for me, being a psychologist is more interesting than being a doctor. It's fine, right? Entonces, I can have many characteristics, ¿no? No sé, for example, responsible. Claro, if I say responsible, ya no hablo de las acciones. ¿Quién es el responsable? La persona, ¿cierto? Entonces, in that case, what do you think of, guys? Who is more responsible, a doctor or a psychologist? Or I can say, who should be more responsible, a doctor or a psychologist? Or it's the same, maybe.
I think being a doctor is as responsible than as being a psychologist.
Exactly, Dani. Pero el que es responsable no es la acción, sino la persona. Entonces, en ese caso, no uso being a doctor, sino simplemente a doctor es a doctor should be. Debería ser, ¿no? Pues no sabemos si son, pero deberían ser. Should be as responsible as a psychologist, ¿cierto? Entonces, ¿por qué en ese caso no uso being? Porque yo no digo que ser doctor es tan responsable, sino el doctor, la persona, es la que es responsable, ¿right? Entonces, en ese caso no se usa el gerundio, porque estoy hablando es de la persona, no de la acción, ¿right? For example, in this case, respect. El que es respetado, pues es la persona, no la acción, sino la persona. Ready? Entonces, in that case, what do you think? Who is more respected? A doctor or a psychologist? Who is more respected?
A doctor can be more expensive, respected, than a psychology.
Wonderful, Brian, very good. Puede ser, ¿no? No es que él siempre sea, puede ser, right? So, a doctor can be more respected than a psychologist. Muy bien, perfect. Danny, you are going to say the same or different?
Same, same.
Same. Okay, very good. So in that case, those adjective or verbs in past participle are going to be characteristics. So they normally are used with the verb to be, and that is one possibility of comparison of the actions and the verb. Ready? So no say a doctor is more no is less fun than a psychologist, you know. Or for example, being a psychologist is more dramatic than being a doctor. Or for example, being a doctor is as dramatic as being a psychologist. No, just they have a lot of pressure. See? So in that case, guys, we can use those adjectives or verbs in past participle. Ready? That is the option number one. The option number two sorry, in the option number two, it's going to have other different things here. It's not going to have characteristics, nor adjectives, nor verbs in past participle. It's going to have a different thing. And then it's not going to have either the verb to be, right? In that case, in the second case, yeah, we're going to have nouns. Do you remember what's the meaning of nouns? In Spanish, what's the meaning of nouns?
Sustantivos.
Sustantivos, very good. So in that case, guys, nouns are the names of things, nombres de las cosas, right? Example, I can say, for example, office. It's one thing, right? Or salary, it's one thing. Or benefits, ¿cierto? Things that we have in our jobs, right? Or for example, vacation, right? Or for example, responsibilities, no? Responsibilities. Okay, so things that we normally have in our jobs. Okay, or free time. Yeah. Okay, or pressure. Yeah. So in that case, it's not a characteristic, it's something, one thing that I have in my job. Probably I have a lot, probably I don't have a lot, I have a little, right? But there are things that we have, especially in this case in our jobs, right? Here, as they are things that we have, then the verb it's going to be exactly that one, have, right? So depending, if I am talking about doctors in general, well, we use have, right? Or if I say a doctor, it has, right? In this case, for example, well, normally the people or the person is the one that has possession. The actions normally don't have possession. So in this case that we have nouns, we are going to talk about normally the person, not the action, right? I can say, for example, that a doctor has a better salary. In this case, es un mejor salario, right? So a doctor has a better salary than a psychologist, in my perception, ¿no? Eso es lo que yo creo. I think so, right? For example, guys, who has more free time? Who has more free time?
A psychologist have more free time than a doctor.
That, of course, a psychologist has, porque es he, ¿cierto? O she. So, a psychologist has more free time than a doctor. Normalmente así es, right? Yes, exactly. And guys, what do you think? Who has more benefits? Who has more benefits, a doctor or a psychologist?
Uh, a doctor has more benefits than psychology.
Got it. Very good. Excellent. No, so de pronto maybe more discounts or more retirement pension, something like that. Could be, no? So I'm just making example. So normally we have the verb to have, but sometimes we can use other different verbs. For example, when we talk about pressure, well, we can say that I have a lot of pressure, but I can see also that I suffer. What is the meaning of suffer? What is the meaning of suffer, guys?
Sufrir.
Sufrir, very good. So in that case, guys, who suffers more pressure? A psychologist or a doctor? Or is the same?
Teacher, in my opinion, a doctor suffer more pressure than a psychologist.
I would say so, yeah. In that case, careful, Chris, a doctor, it's he or she. So a doctor suffers more pressure than a psychologist. I would say the same. Yes, exactly. Teacher, ¿y qué pasa si es igual? I'm going to use as, obvio. Ready? Pero en este caso, los nouns son contables o no contables. Por lo tanto, cuando uso as con sustantivos, I have two possibilities. As many or as much. ¿Ya? Ejemplo, un doctor tiene tantos beneficios como un psicólogo. A doctor has as many benefits, porque es plural, ¿cierto? As many benefits as a psychologist. Si fuera no contable, for example, the pressure, as much. A doctor suffers as much pressure as a psychologist, right? So in that case, depending, of course, depending the noun, we are going to talk about countable or not countable. And if it's more or less or better or worse, no problem. It's just more or less and done, and that's it. But when we have as, it's necessary to specify if it's countable or not countable. So I have to use as many or as much. Got it? Yes. Guys, hasta ahí, how do you feel? Way, good, questions, problems, difficulties, confusions?
Creo que una pregunta.
Yes,
Cuando es a doctor, we have to put the S at the end of the verb. Y
exactly,
cuando
Mike.
the doctor,
And the other possibility would be doctors, ¿no? In plural. Doctors, que sería, of course, they. In that case, is doctors have. Como los doctores tienen, right? In plural.
okay, thank you.
Ready? Muy bien. Very good, guys. Excellent, excellent. Now that's the second part or the second possibility of making comparison. The first one was characteristics, adjectives over in past participle. The second one, it's talking about the nouns, the things that we have in our jobs. And the last one, it's even easier, más fácil todavía. It's not going to have anything here. This part, it's going to be empty. Wait. It's going to be empty, right? And what we're going to make the comparison with is here. The focus of the comparison is going to be right here. So when we talk about other different kinds of comparison, what we are making is comparing, sorry, the actions that they do. Actions like, for example, work, no, it's an action that both do. Or like, for example, suffer, no, suffer is also an action, or an action that both do, sleep, yeah. Or I don't know, let's say earn, good. Earn, it's like ganar dinero, right? Or for example, travel, yeah. I don't know, rest, rest. What is the meaning of rest?
Descansar.
Descansar, very good, excellent. Oh, for example, I don't know, let's say live itself, no? Eat, right? Love, different actions that they both do. And then the comparison is which of the two people do the action more, right? Example, who works more, a doctor or a psychologist?
A doctor work more than psychologist.
Exactly. So a doctor works, porque es tercera persona, ¿cierto? A doctor works more than a psychologist. Okay, yes. Good. I can include sometimes nouns here, but it's optional, no? I can say a doctor works more than a psychologist, or a doctor works more hours, for example, no? But it's only a possibility. It's actually not mandatory. So it's fine. Suffers, sleeps, earns, travels, rest, live. For example, we're going to say that travel, they both travel the same. How can I express that un doctor viaja tanto como un psicólogo? How could you express that?
A doctor travel as many than psychology.
Ok, Ryan, casi. Travels, porque es tercera persona, y los verbos siempre son no contables. Entonces, en that case, no hay as many, sino as much, porque es una acción que no es contable. A doctor travels as much as a psychologist. Muy bien, good, excellent, right? For example, who lives better? En este caso no estamos hablando quién vive más, sino quién vive mejor. Who lives better? A doctor or a psychologist?
In my opinion, a doctor lives better than a psychologist.
Okay, yeah. Possibly because the doctor earns more than a psychologist. So probably that's the reason why a doctor lives better than a psychologist. Good. It's a possibility. No? Muy bien. So guys, in that case, that is the option number 3. So we have first, characteristics, adjectives or verbs past participle. Second, nouns. And third, comparisons with verbs, with actions, right? So this is not only for professions. Of course, I can make comparisons with everything in life, right? But well, this week, of course, we are focused on professions, right? So we can make comparisons between these two professions or any kind of professions that we have, right? Also, taking back the example of the job interview, it's a possibility that they ask you to compare two different vacancies or to different companies or to different jobs that they offer you. Example, they say, okay, compare this job with your previous one, or compare this offer with a previous one. So you have to say, okay, no, working in this company is better than working in the other company, or this company is more respected than the other company, right? Oh, for example, the salary here is bigger than the salary on the other company, right? Or maybe an action, no? Working for this company is more prestigious than working for the other company. So these kind of comparisons, of course, are going to help me to, of course, compare, no? But talk, describe my perception about characteristics of jobs, about characteristics of companies, about characteristics of functions in your workplace. So that's the possibility. I mean, we have here infinite possibilities of comparing. Ready, guys? Now, we're going to have a short activity here in which we have first two different comparison jobs, right? The first one is that we have two actions, being a lawyer, being a politician, or working in Colombia, working in USA, directing movies or composing good songs, speaking English and speaking Japanese, training for the army or training for the police, Sing, oh no, here it's singing, sorry, sorry. Here it's singing opera or singing pop. Ready? So guys, choose one of these actions and tell me a comparison between the two actions. It's your perception. You can make the comparison with characteristics or with nouns or with verbs, you know? So try. Find one comparison that you would like to do and do it with the option that you prefer. Okay? Try, try, try. Go ahead.
Speaking English is
Uh-huh.
easier than speaking Japanese.
Great, Danny. Very good. Speaking English is easier than speaking Japanese, of course. ¿Qué más? Any other guys?
Training for the army is more difficult than training for the police.
Good, very good. So training for the army, it's more difficult than training for the police. That's true. Hmm. Chris, what do you think about one other?
Um, Estoy pensando, profe.
Don't worry, relax. I have an example, for example, here that it's not only with verb to be, it's the most common one, no? Because we're talking about characteristics of that action. But I can have other different possibilities. I don't know. Let's say working in, pardon, singing opera presents more challenges. What's the meaning of challenges?
¿Desafíos?
Desafíos, very good. So in that case, not only with verb to be, it's the most common. Yeah, of course, it's the most common comparison, but we can have with others. So singing opera presents more challenges than singing pop, in my opinion, of course, right? So you can do it with, again, with characteristics, with nouns, with verbs, with whatever you want. What do you think, Chris? Do you have another one? Can be about the same examples, no problem.
Okay, singing opera could be harder than singing pop.
Good, excellent. So singing opera could be harder, but it's basically the same that I said, but with other words, but it's basically the same. Could be harder than singing, sorry, here, than singing opera, singing pop. Muy bien, very good. Ready? Now, we're gonna go over the opposite exercise. Ready? Over here, we have some comparisons. Is not as well paid as, work in better places than, has as many responsibilities as, is much more difficult than, or don't have as many holidays as, y are more respected than. That we continue here. Now, what you have to do is think or find two jobs or two people or two professions that fit that comparison. For example, the first one is not as well paid as. I'm going to say, for example, that um, a, a school teacher, a school teacher is not as well paid as a university. Bueno, a professor, you know, a professor is a teacher who is a researcher, so usually in a university. So a school teacher is not as well paid as a professor. I find two possibilities that fit that comparison. Can be a person, like a school teacher or professor, or the action, no? You know, so I can say being a professor is not as well paid as being sorry, being a school teacher is not as well paid as being a professor, depending the comparison, ¿cierto? Sometimes I can include both options. Sometimes I can just include one. Ready? So one more time, I'm going to ask you to do the exercise. Find one of the possibilities that you prefer and do the exercise. Find two possibilities to pick.
being soccer player are more respect than a cricket player?
Important, good. So, Brian, in this case, when they say are, it's plural. So, not talking about the action, but talking about the players. So, I could say, for example, soccer players, ¿cierto? Porque está en plural. So, son más respetados. Soccer players are more respected than cricket players. Very good, Brian. Good. Mhm. Good. Any other, guys?
Maybe being a veterinary is much more difficult than being a waiter.
Being a vet is much more difficult than being a waiter. Good, excellent. So in that case, we're talking about the difficulty. So good, it's the action. It's not the person. The person is not difficult. The difficulty is on the action. No? So being a vet is much more difficult than being a waiter. Thank you, Christian. Excellent example. Al, my dear Danny, do you have one more?
Mothers has as many responsibilities as the fathers.
Bueno, they should have, no? So it's what it's logical. So a mother has as many responsibilities as a father. Muy bien, very good. So that's what it looks like, no? Guys, excellent. So in that case, find or take into account, notice that we can make comparisons from different perspectives. And there is always a possibility to make, right? Maybe the comparison is about the two actions, maybe the comparison is about the people, maybe it's a comparison about characteristics, or maybe it's a comparison about actions, right? So we just have to find the correct structure. The structure almost always is the same. I can change some elements, but the structure is almost always the same. Ready? Guys, so final question, and this is a question for all of you. So how do you, I frog, sorry. How do you see your job, you know, like in front of others? Or your profession, no? Your major. How do you see your job in front of others? Good. So what I'm asking is make a comparison between your job and others. Example, for me, I think that being a teacher, being a teacher is much more, es una exageración de la comparación, much more, ¿cierto? It's much more exciting than working in an office. For me, of course, that's my perception. Being a teacher is much more exciting than working in an office. Hmm? But that is what I think. Of course, you have to make your own comparisons with your profession and other one that you prefer. Good? So how do you see your job or your profession in front of others?
Being accountant can be as difficult as economist.
Good. But in that case, Brian, being an accountant, no? Like, an accountant could be as difficult, good, as difficult as, one more time, if here I'm talking about the action, here also I'm talking about the action as being an economist. Okay. Muy bien, Brian. Excellent. That's great. What about the other guys? What do you think about your job? How do you see compared with others?
Being an economist is more paid than being an waiter.
Good, very good. When we talk about the salary, Danny, we usually use better because both are paid, but the quality of one paid is better than the other. So being an economist is better paid than being a waiter. Muy bien, great, excellent. That's true. And finally, Chris, what do you think about being a business manager?
Being a business manager could be as stressful as a lawyer.
As being a lawyer.
Yeah, as being a lawyer.
Exactly, very good. So being a business manager could be, no, it's not always, sometimes, no. So it could be as stressful as being a lawyer. True, good, excellent. So good, guys. That's the idea. So you can compare your profession, so being that, or you as these people, no. So an accountant, yeah, or me, I work more. I have less free time than the accountant in my company, for example, no? Or for example, here in Smart Online, we have two different teachers, assistant teachers, and the tutor that it's me, no? That it's like the main teacher of the course. Well, for example, I could say that I have, no sé, I have more responsibilities than the assistant teachers, but the assistant teachers give more classes than me. So it can be for people specifically, for the action, for the profession. You can do the comparison as you prefer. Ready? So guys, this is basically what we talk about gerunds. It's like an introduction to gerunds, this part. And here in this week, what we did was having a lot of, or learning a lot of tools for talking about the job, for expressing myself in a job interview, for, like talking about the things that I like or that I don't like, for talking about my skills. Yeah. So I am brave. So I am a person who is always willing to help, or, so all the week was related to, job, professions, all of that. And then we did a lot of things. We compare, we give extra information, we talk about actions. So that week was like full of information, but I think it was like a good review and a good start for the intermediate one level, guys. Ready? So thank you for being here. As I always said, continue working on the platform, continue with that constancy that you have, and that's it. See you the next week. The next week we also have two classes, so I expect to see you here. That's it. Have a happy weekend. And guys, thank you for being here on a Friday. Thank you so much.
Thank you, teacher. See you.
Bye, guys.
Bye, teacher. Thanks.
See you.